Welcome to Writers Unscripted. I am Will Dawson, and this is curated by the Los Angeles Screenwriting Competition. And guys, I really want you to understand what we're doing with this series. That we're bringing you behind the scenes to talk to other filmmakers and writers and just independent forces in the industry to help give you, I'm not going to say a leg up on the competition, but just the fundamentals that you need in order to get your scripts written and then what to expect once they are done and submitted. All right. So we know the ceremony is coming up later in the year. You still have time to submit your scripts. Please do it now at lascreenwriting.com. But right now, we're going to take you behind the scenes. We're going to give you a little inside baseball, if you will, with different creatives that are doing their thing. And today, we are joined by two brothers. And when I say brothers, I mean brothers, you know what I'm saying, that are doing their thing. They are independent filmmakers. One is a cinematographer, one is a producer. And let me tell you something, these brothers are doing things that are near and dear to my heart. And I hope that it will resonate with you guys as well. And I know it will because they are doing amazing work. Please help me welcome Jay Calhoun and Lasana Hotep to Writers Unscripted. What's going on, fellas?
What's up, Will? Salute, bro.
Owner, yes, indeed, man. Listen, I in your bios, and usually I will read that with the person here so they can go through that. But I don't want to do that now. But Lasana, when I was reading your bio, man, this is work that is near and dear to my heart. So I really want to just touch on some of the stuff that you've done. You've contributed to the publications like Be a Father to Your Child, Real Talk from Black Men of the Hiphop Generation. The Black Male Handbook, a Blueprint for Life, an icon of Black America. You're co-author of Minding the Obligation Gap in Community Colleges and Beyond. Brother, I'm clapping for you right now, man. I'm doing it just for that part of your situation, all right? You're also a producer. You're doing independent films, and I will not leave Jay out because it takes a special person to be able to be a cinematographer. And you know how big cinematographers are? They do that during the main show of the ceremonies. You hear what I'm saying? They don't just do that on Thursday. Here on Sundays. You understand what I'm saying? Cinematographers get love, and they have to, because that is what you see on screen at all times. So just to be able to, I'll use the word landscape, but just be able to capture the entire quote unquote picture is an art in itself. So these brothers are here. They are doing great work together. So I really just want to thank y'all for everything you have done. And then we'll talk about today about your journey and what you will be doing in the future. All right. So Jay, let's start with you. When did you first know that you wanted to see the entire screen? What was it that you saw that said, "No, I need to do this"?
Oh my goodness, crazy. I'm gonna be straight up honest with you. I was doing music since I was about 11 years old, so I didn't pick up a camera till I was in my 30s.
Okay.
And when I picked it up, I mean, I would say, to answer your question, I've always had a vision, in terms of seeing stuff and the way I like to see a composition. But coming from a drummer standpoint or from a keyboard standpoint, I'm not translating that into ISOs and frame lenses and all that kind of stuff, ratios and aspects and all that. So when I picked up the camera, it really kind of lit me up. I've always felt like doing something you love is a definite plus, and I've been able to create my whole life. So I've always done something I've been passionate about, and this was just another extension of it. Picking up that camera turned me out, man. I mean, not to be too street about it, but it just opened me up to like stuff I never even thought I would, one, be able to do, and two, be able to capture in a way, that kind of solidifies the vision and also helps other people get something from it, what I'm saying, feel some kind of way about what they see.
So as a filmmaker and a writer, of course, you are writing and telling the story, but the screen, what you see on the screen can tell the story just as vivid, right? So what are some of the things that go into the shots that you want to capture? Like what do you think about when you're about to do a film? Like, we talk about shot lists, but I mean, this is the whole thing. So what are some of the thoughts that go on through your head?
I think, it's a combination of things: the director, the producer, the feel of the film, what we really want to express. But I think overall, I go by the old school film theory, which means, you're actually loading up film. You ain't got a lot of time to waste. Even though I know we're doing everything digital and you can just record on and on for days, I still approach every scene like, look, we got to get this right. You know what I mean? So let's make sure the composition is perfect. Let's not put stuff in it that we don't need. Let's not cover stuff that we ain't going to really see that's going to drop on the floor and edit, or stuff that we know we're just doing because it's pretty and we like it. You know what I mean? Is it helping the story progress? Is it actually making the viewer feel something about this that they didn't feel before? If we're doing that, then we win it. If we're not, we just playing with cameras and angles and looking at how pretty the flowers are.
Okay. So you have an extensive history doing this. You were part of the legendary Badass film.
Yes, sir.
You were part of the production team with Tupac Resurrection on MTV. I mean, the MTV Productions. So you've been in this for a while. So we talked about loading the film versus the digital that we do today. So what are the similarities and the differences between loading the film and today's drones and getting the shots that way? What's the difference now? What we doing?
I mean, the difference is clearly, accessibility and tool sets, right? Like there was a skill that you had to have and understand in order to load some film. I'm not negating what's happening now, but there is a little less skill involved in flying a drone or doing something on your phone, or you know what I mean? As I tell people, even though yes, there is a lot of DSLRs and smaller cameras that you can do, you still got to know lighting, you still got to know composition, you still got to know technique, you still got to know frame rate, you still got to know, you know what I mean? So there's a bunch of things that you just can't throw up just because you got, a $400 or $4,000 red camera. You know what I mean? Like it is accessible. That's the big difference. But the skill set ain't changed. You still got to be creative. You still got to know your work. You still got to be about that life. As we say in our terminology. You know what I mean? Anybody can pull up a camera and have a one-trick pony, so to speak, or one moment where they grab something. But to be able to calculate and actually deliver an image that people want to see over and over again, that's a skill set.
Lasana, I promise I got you in a minute. I promise. I'm gonna
follow up with him.
I got you. All right. So, but we're talking. All right. So I mentioned drones, but a lot of people are filming stuff on their iPhones now, right? So there was a different. I know one filmmaker that I know of, Matthew Cherry. He did a whole film on his iPhone, right? So what are the technicalities that he needed for that, and not was his film less than, but it could have been enhanced, of course, with the regular cameras and all the high tech stuff. But how do you think that wound up for him? Like, just filming with the camera. What are the things that go along with that? Or with a phone?
The gift and the curse of this new technology is that the curse is, of course, like I said earlier, the learning curve is a little off, right? People are getting away with murder, so to speak, back in the day when we say, you can't do that. That's not in the realm of filmmaking and blah, blah, blah. The gift is that as long as you tell an accurate story, I don't care what you shoot it with. It don't matter. YouTube has shown us. The public eye has shown us. Now, don't get it twisted. You put up something that they can't hear, they're not going to watch it. But it doesn't really matter the camera you use. If it's grainier, if it's more digital, people don't really care. They don't give a rat's ass. They want to see a good story. And if you're able to tell a good story, it don't matter what you use. So I say that with a little bit of, what I mean? I don't want everybody to think, oh, I just got what my mama say, you got a rope and you think you're a cowboy now? Like, no, I don't want you to do that, but I want it to be understood that this technology, if used correctly, if used by the skill set that I was talking about, can really benefit you.
All right, so Lasana, I'm bringing you in now because I love that your passion is telling stories about us, right? So, and I'm talking about Black folk. So when did you first know that you wanted to tell our stories?
It's been a combination of experiences. You talked about some of the books I contributed to. My formal background is as a historian and as a communicator with rhetorical criticism. Those are what my degrees are in. And so I was always compelled by our community and the diaspora, right? The entire story of Black folks. The thing that really kind of let me know that I want to tell stories visually was seeing Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing, right? So when I saw Do the Right Thing and I saw the way it was shot, talking about cinematography and how Ernest Dickerson collaborated with Spike on that look and that feel of that film, and the emotional connections that film was able to make on multiple levels. I was like, you know what, I would like to be able to tell stories visually. So I began, again, my natural inclination is a historian. So I began with Oscar Michaud, right? So I started figuring out the lineage of Black filmmakers, from Michaud to Gordon Parks to what's my man, Melvin Van Peebles, right? The whole narrative and the whole connection to filmmaking that led up to contemporary Spike Lee, and then you got the Matty Riches, the John Singletons, the Ava DuVernay's now, and so many others. And so, and Haley Jarima, right, who made Sankofa. And then from learning the lineage, and I'm missing, you know, Julie Dash and so many others, that whole collective. And then, right, I decided that I was like, I got to go beyond. So I said, who inspired them? So then I had to study, you know, Akira Kurosawa, right? And I had to study Fellini. And so I had to really immerse myself in the art and science of cinema, right? And then once I immersed myself in art and science of cinema, I was like, yeah, we can do this. And now we're at a really greater advantage because one of the access of the digital technology, but two, we have all these greats who've gone before us that we can pull from.
Okay. And that leads into my next question. I think this is for both of you. How do you choose the stories that you want to tell?
I'll go first. Sometimes it's about phenomenon, right? It's like what's going on. You got to understand my orientation, right? So it's two things about me as a filmmaker that's very important. One, we focus on some type of victory, right? It's not, you know, I'm not talking about being Pollyanna or, you know, being overly optimistic, but I want to focus on victory, on possibilities of us. And then two, I want to focus on cultural enrichment, right? What's enriching to our culture. And so when it comes to narrative films, so far, the films that Jay and I have done narrative-wise, it came from a germ of an idea. Like, so we were at Sundance Film Festival in 2023, debuting, premiering a film that I executive produced with Qasim Basir. But while we were there, we had an Airbnb and we were talking about projects. And then we started talking about different kinds of things that was going on in our community. And then we came up with the seeds for a project. And then when we came back to California, we began to develop on that project, right? So that just came from just conversations and being in community. For my documentary projects, it's really like what's happening, right? I like where the cinema or the story or the beauty and magnificence is already there, and it's just about us being creative enough to capture it, right? So one of the documentaries we shot that's in Ghana, it was around a particular conference. It was around a bunch of ceremonies. So when people were telling me about what they were going to do in Ghana, I said, that's a movie, right? I'm gonna make that a movie because y'all have all of the elements there. It just has to be captured and connected the right way. So those are the kind of ways that I go about it.
Okay.
I think following that trend and tradition is making sure that, like you said earlier, we put our stories front and center, you know, and finding ways to, you know, I come from a healthy 60s, 70s civil rights family. And so it's always about changing, or not even changing, but fixing the lies that were told about our history or about our organizations, about our people, or even giving a different advantage point or vantage point rather to the plights of the heroes that we celebrate. You know what I mean? There are so many stories, there's so many avenues, there's so many ways that we have yet to be expressed and understood that it's just only right to use this medium to do that.
Okay. So so it's important to put us front and center. And I feel like even when it comes to like mainstream, and I'm gonna bring it up because why not? When Marvel was doing the Black Panther, they got a Black director to tell that story, right? So he had to dig deep, he had to do that. And that movie felt different than all their other movies because it was told from a perspective of a Black filmmaker who was able to give that character so many more layers, right? So now, you know, so I see even from the mainstream point where when we tell our stories, they are different than all the other stories that are told when they're told from our vantage point. So I want to know, so how is it working together? Like, so you guys have done projects together, you're still working together. Who's the writer? Who's the director? Like, how does it all work, and how do you guys combine? How do you combine your powers there?
Let me speak to your Black Panther point. So the Black Panther piece, I'm glad you brought that up as an example, because although Ryan Coogler was the director, the source material came from Ta-Nehisi Coates, right, who is a journalist and who had first got commissioned by Marvel to write the new era of Black Panther comics. Right. And so the source material was written from somebody who was enriched in the culture. Some people don't know, but Ta-Nehisi Coates is the son of Paul Coates. Paul Coates is a publisher of the Black Classic Press, right, who put out books about our history and our culture. And so he was immersed within history and culture. So when he got the assignment to do Black Panther, it gave a totally different kind of take. It wasn't something that was generic. It wasn't something that was that lacked depth, right? You got it from a person who had pretty much from birth until the time he got that assignment had been immersed in African diaspora in a particular kind of way. And so that's, you know, when you talk about a writer's workshop, that source material makes a difference, right? And the source material don't always have to have that kind of levity, right? But it just knows that you have to understand the orientation of the source material in order to put the bones and the flesh on the bones. In terms of our process, is I'm gonna be honest with you, as the executive producer and the producer of a lot of the projects, I take that role very seriously. So I try to do as least and as much as I feel like. I'm gonna be honest with you, as least and as much as I feel like. So when I really feel like real strong on something, I'm gonna do that. If it's something I don't want to do, then I'll be like, man, you know, you gotta get the team involved. You got it. But that's just the producer in me, because even though I was inspired by Spike, when I first got into film and I would be on set, I got a different kind of respect for the director, right? I was like, this is a lot of work, you know, storyboarding and working with all these people and being a supervisor and a manager. I know what that means. I was like, I don't want no more of that. So I like to aggregate and to procure. So I pull people together, right? That's what a producer does. Pull people together, pull resources together, get the talent and get the skill sets so that we can produce this beauty, right? So that's why I'm not a director, is that not that I don't have the skill, I've done it before. I don't write screenplays, even though I've done it before and had that done. I realize I have a certain kind of respect for those specialties, and I just like to procure and aggregate and bring all those particular skill sets together. So Jay pretty much does what I don't want to do.
Hey, before you go, and I know you got a lot to say, but I want to follow up with you. So as a producer, like how compelling do you have to be in order to procure that funding and those people that bring together like the team that makes it happen?
Yeah, well, I don't do any projects that I don't feel passionate about, right? And so if I'm passionate about it, then I'm going to be able to get the resources, the human resources, the fiscal resources, the artistic resources, and the intellectual resources that it takes to bring this thing together. And so my passion fuels the projects. I'm what I call a optimistic pragmatist. So what that means is that I'm going to go out, and even if something seems insurmountable, either financially or being technically or whatever, I don't focus on that. I do everything that we can understanding those barriers. And then once we have everything that we can understanding those barriers, then we begin to address those barriers instead of starting from the process of, well, that you know, that's a car chase or that's an explosion or whatever the scenario is that may seem like it's impractical. We deal with those impracticalities after we've done everything that we can that's within our resource. And as a producer, that's kind of how I move, and that's how we've been able to remove barriers.
Okay. All right, Jay, as everything else, talk to me. What's your process?
Akoben Cinema, I am the director that shoots. And clearly, like you said, you know, we've collabed on writing. And so that's been the new wrinkle to the fold. But yeah, mostly I'm the director on set, or if I'm shooting on set. We have a a host of people that we know that are in this business that do a myriad of things. So, you know, for those of us who know set etiquette, you know, you just get out there and you find your niche. You know what I mean? You find your place. And if Jimmy want to direct today, cool, I'm gonna be on sound. If you know, Lynette want to be on sound, cool, I'm gonna be on AA. You know what I mean? Like, we all do what we need to do, but for the most part, I am the director who shoots.
No, let's be clear. All right, he's a director. He's gonna do the majority of the writing. I'm gonna give you an outline, and I'll give you some cold 16s, right? I'll give you a hot 16. Yeah, but he's gonna do most of the writing.
Okay.
He's gonna edit. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
He's gonna edit, and if he has to, he'll do color and sound. So that's what I mean by the things I don't want to do. Now, a lot of times I bring in people to complement that, right? We'll get another resource brought to the team, but lead on that. That's my guy right here. He's going to lead it. And then when he says, hey, my bandwidth, and then we'll go ahead and get somebody else. But I'm like, you know, I'm going to come in. I'm going to get you some money. I'm going to get you some people. Bro, you know, make this thing happen, bro.
So we were talking before we started, kind of really behind the scenes, about the projects that you work on. So are they all yours, or do you adapt from other things? Like, what is the process there? How do you choose?
So I'll give some examples. So when Qasim Basir was working on To Live and Die and Live, he shot that in Detroit during the pandemic, and it stars Eamon Joseph from Snowfall fame, who played Uncle Jerome. It had some other, you know, Amari Hardwick, Corey Hardrick, Jessica Care Moore, a variety of other talent in that film. When he was working on that film, I actually met him because I was executive producing a film that Jessica Care Moore had written called He Looks Like a Postcard. And so I was in Detroit. We were starting principal photography for Postcard. I started talking to Qasim about projects he was working on. He's like, I just wrapped on this other film with Eamon Joseph. And so I became the executive producer of that project after, to make sure that that project had the post-production it needed to make it to the screen, which we premiered at Sundance. With Jessica, she had written the script, came to me and was like, yo, I want to make a movie. I've known Jessica for some 20 years. I've always been a supporter of her art. I've always been a person who put my money where my mouth is in terms of supporting Black art. And so I said, hey, I'll be the primary financer of the project, right? And so that's kind of how Postcard got made. Other projects that we're developing, from the documentary Ghana We Are Here to a couple of projects, I'm being vague on purpose because I don't want to release anything before, you know, certain kind of times. But a couple other projects that we have right now, he and I collaborated on, right? We thought about the ideas, we thought about where we wanted to go. And so it depends to me as a producer. Some unique situations where Qasim presented me with an opportunity, Jessica presented me with a script, and on the strength of the relationship and on the strength of the art, I was willing to back it. Now we're back in our fold where we're like, okay, we're doing our projects that come from our brain trust.
Okay.
And to piggyback on that, you know, we have been given scripts, you know, we've solicited scripts. We open, you know what I'm saying? There's no one way that we select how we're going to put together a story, you know what I mean? But we definitely are now in this new nucleus that we join, and we just gonna have rock with it. Because, you know, the business is so, especially after the strike, right? Folks was diving and scrambling for stuff. So, you know, they opened up their skill set. They opened up their palette. Now, cats who only do one thing now do 2 or 3 things. You know what I mean? And it's necessary. I think, like we were talking earlier, you can't just do one thing in this business for Black folk.
I think before this screenwriters competition, it's good to know that we are open to scripts, right? We are open to ideas. We're open to stories. We have a commitment to independent artists. We have a commitment to storytellers of all backgrounds, but specifically our narrative. Because this is another thing about culture, right? We can infuse certain kind of cultural things that are that may be nuanced to us in projects around other cultures, right? There's you know, because we bring a certain kind of flavor. You see that when Spike did like 25th Hour, right? You know, you know, it wasn't an all Black cast like he traditionally does, but it still had that kind of nuance, that kind of reflection of a particular type of style. And so we have a commitment to that, right? You got a great story that's going to be intriguing, that's going to get people emotionally invested, that's going to address some type of issue in some direct way or indirect way. We're open to it. So writers, we're open to helping you develop your script.
Word.
All right, so get your scripts in. LA Screenwriting.
Plug.
Right. No, all right. I'm glad you brought up Spike, and the way you brought him up really helps me dive into this because we love Spike Lee films, but what he does excellently is documentaries. Four Little Girls, When the Levees. So talk to me about your process when it comes to documentaries, because with a film, you got a story and you follow that story all the way through. Now with the documentary, of course, there's stories, a story you want to tell, but you gotta kind of like pull it together as it goes, the different parts of it. So tell me about your process when it comes to documentary making.
Well, it's a couple of processes, right? It depends on the source. So like one other one that we're doing in Ghana, we are here, that's in post-production right now, was there was a specific event happening at a specific time in Ghana where Black people from the United States of America went there to host a conference on African-centered education. But it was a lot of other things that were surrounding that. And so what I wanted to do was capture a few things, right? One, I wanted to capture the actual events and activities that was going on and the heavy hitters in terms of scholars and intellects that were there. But I also wanted to capture Ghana through a particular kind of lens, right? A lot of times when you see Africa, it's always like ceremony. It's just drumming and dancing or some other type of thing. But we were on the campus of Cape Coast University. How many times have you seen African students at an African university going to school, right? We wanted to capture those kinds of things. But also we wanted to make sure that we had storytellers, right? We wanted to have some kind of connective tissue between people who were having the experience and people who were actual leaders in the particular theories or phenomena we were talking about. And so it's an iterative process because, you know, by documentaries, especially when you have like talking heads in it, you don't know what they're going to say. Right. You know, you don't know where it's going to come from. It's not scripted. So that's the whole beauty of it. And so you kind of, you know, take from the source material that you have, and then you craft the narrative from there. Now, this is one particular book that we're about to look into creating a documentary about, which is a totally different process because, again, as having a background as a historian, I'm going to approach the story from both sides, making sure that we have the historical accuracy, but at the same time, it's a compelling narrative that engages folks, right? So the story in and of itself, which I'm not going to reveal, it's mind-blowing, right? It's mind-blowing and it's historically accurate, but we got to make sure that those elements are there so that we are doing, because you got to understand that telling cinema is telling stories through pictures, right? And I never want anybody who works with me on a project to forget that it's about capturing those images and telling the stories through those images, and then that the audio and that the music is going to bring a certain level of depth and continuity, but our fiduciary responsibility is making sure that it's cinematic. And so I want to make sure that everything we do is cinematic, even if it's a history story. And so that's my approach from that source material. You know, first you got to, you know, get the licensing from the book, and then you get the book, and then you go from that process and begin to break down what are the parts that's going to be more cinematic. In this documentary we're developing right now that I'm talking about, this is going to be a time where we're actually going to have dramatization, right? Where we're actually going to bring in actors to act out some of the particular things because there's no footage of the stuff that we want to tell in the story. And so that's a different kind of process of when do you bring in dramatization? When do you bring in animation, right? When do you bring in a counter narrative? Right. All right. This is their version of the people who said that this is what happened. But here's some other people who said it happened differently, or they experienced this way. And all of those things make for great storytelling. So it really depends on the story we're trying to tell.
Okay. I will use an example of a documentary I did for an organization I used to work with about 10 years ago.
The Black Panther joint?
Yeah. And their whole ambition was to tell the story of the Black Panther Party. And not to, you know, disparage them or put them down, but it was like, that's not your space. Right. That's not your job. You know what I mean? Like, stick to your focus. And your focus is you were the educational component to where these people met, but you didn't have anything to do with the, you know what I mean, the trajectory of the party. So find your little spot and stay in that little area, right? But it's definitely essential to every documentary, in my opinion, to not only have the counter arguments, but to also stay focused on your narrative. Stay focused on you. It's not your job to tell the story of the whole civil rights piece because you're doing a thing on Fannie Lou Hamer. You know what I mean? Focus on Fannie Lou and stay there. Don't go nowhere else, you know? So I think that's a way to approach how you do docs is get your focus and I mean, just grind it the hell out.
Yeah, and it was a great documentary, right? That's actually how he and I met. We were both working in education. I saw his cinematography and his work on that film, and I was like, "Yo, this is the real deal." Right. And so I let him know, "Hey, I do films, I do projects. Let's talk about how we can collaborate." That's actually how we met. Yeah. But to his point, you know, it's a whole lot of material for, especially something that's historical. You got to find what is the story, particular story I want to tell, and that's one of the challenges that writers and filmmakers to some extent have challenges is narrowing down the focus of the essential elements. It's going to be a lot left on the floor. Absolutely. And you got to be okay with that, right? Because you can't be exhaustive. You got to be very exacting, right? And so when we become more exacting and more precise, it makes for a richer and more compelling story. But the most important thing in those kind of things that tend to be more educational is you want the audience member to want to go somewhere and find out more, to go read the book or go watch more documentaries around it, right? You don't want to tell the whole thing. You want to, you want to leave them in a state of, man, I need to know more about this, or I want to read the book now.
All right. Yeah. Well, that leads into the next question I want. You guys just serve it up for me. Serve it up. Serve it up. All right. So how did you come up with the name Akoben?
So Akoben is both a word and a concept. And so Akoben comes from the Akan people in Ghana, West Africa. And the Akan have a variety of symbols and words that represents philosophical principles. So like one of the most popular ones in the West is Sankofa or Sankofa, right? And the film Sankofa made by Haley Jarima, the symbol you see all over with the bird with it flying forward, but looking backward, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that particular philosophy that symbol and that word represent is it is not taboo to go back and fetch that which you have, right? Well, Akoben is in that same spirit, right? And the Akoben symbol is a horn, right, on top of a stool. And Akoben is basically called the war horn. And so what it is it's the community call out instrument, but also philosophy that we are at war. And then certain things need to happen when you're at war. One, the warriors, right, need to be prepared to go out and defend the community. But two, there's a group of people who stay back intentionally to preserve the community and preserve our stories so that regardless of what's lost in the war, we're able to preserve our identities. And so Akoben has two meanings. It's the war horn. It's an instrument for casting out and broadcasting to our communities, right, the messages that need to be sent out to understand the context of the times we're in. But also we have those who are storytellers who are there specifically to preserve the story. So no matter what our casualties or losses are, we won't lose our identities.
Okay. You guys, I'm not overwhelmed. I'm just soaking everything in, and I'm appreciating every word that you guys are saying.
There's a value in preserving identity.
Yeah.
There's a value. That's one key thing I want the people to. There's a value in preserving. So when you're writing, think about the characters, but think about the communities that these characters represent, and how do we bring dignity to identity.
And that's a big thing because we tell there's a lot of stories being told, but if we're talking with dignity, that kind of shaves off a lot of them. So
you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Dignity to identity, and that's what brings authenticity. We're not saying everything has to be positive or polished over or cut and dry like a after school special, so to speak. But what we're saying is that even in conflict, even in a conflicting person, we have to bring dignity to identity. And it goes back to a whole bunch of traditions, right? Fela Kuti, who talks about, music is a weapon, right? We have to understand that music is spiritual and we have to keep it. I have Jean-Michel Basquiat art on my chest, right? Jean-Michel was very much understood what art was communicating and made sure that his art represented that preservation. And so in a lot of cases where we have challenges, and this is not a knock on anybody's preferences, but art has been divorced. Art and entertainment has been separated.
Yes.
Right. And so when you don't have like a sense of duty, compassion, and connectedness to art, and you separate and you just have things that are entertaining, then you're going to lose a lot, right? You're going to lose a whole lot. And so as writers, regardless of what people do with your projects, make sure that the project that you write has levity, has grounding, has depth, and has dignity. And then from there, you all can edit and decide what you want to emphasize the most. But from your initial, that's where you want to start. You can start from, starting from there, you're starting in a good terrain.
Yeah.
Okay. What are you guys working on next? I know you've been vague before. I know the book. I know the book. But
Yeah,
what
we're working
what
on?
Yeah.
So it's a couple of things that I'll tell you about. So we have Jessica Care Moore's project. He looks like a postcard. It's in post-production. Right now, we're waiting to hear back from festivals where we're going to be preparing that, and then also distributing that in a very creative way. Jessica Care Moore is a poet. She has made her living as a poet, writing books and performing poetry. And in some of the cities that we're going to premiere it, we're going to have poetry events tied to the screenings, right? So that's coming within the next quarter. The next project we have that's in post is called Ghana We Are Here, where we shot the documentary about the African-centered education in Ghana and America. That's in editing, and then we're going to get that rough cut within the next 30 to 60 days, and then we're going to go with that. Then we have a couple of books that we're looking to adapt that I'm going to stay vague on. One is going to be a documentary, but another one is more of a Afrofuturist sci-fi kind of project that we're developing, that we're getting the permission for the book for. But again, we are also open and interested in listening to some scripts. We have another script that's in development, the one that we had the retreat and talked about, that we are 60 to 90 days of having the script done so that we can begin production on that. And
in our back pocket, we got a rom-com. So
yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. We actually did a rom-com during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I want to hear more about that later, but you guys have been dropping gems all day, but I guess a common question would be, what do you do when you get stuck? Like when you're doing the writing, or when you have these ideas, like what do you do when you get stuck? Do you have a process that you go through to get out of that rut? Or
do I encourage the brand of Prosecco I use, or do I mean, I'm gonna jump in on that one. It is every day you're stuck on something. As a filmmaker, there is no, I believe the process, or one of the biggest ways you can assess a filmmaker is how their problem solving skills are. You know what I mean? Like, because there's no day on set, there's no day in creative, there's no day in pre-pro that you aren't solving some problem or finding a way to get around the obstacle that you're being faced with. So in my opinion, it's almost like that Michael Jordan phrase, or statement, I've failed more times than I've succeeded. Stay stuck, get stuck. It's okay to be stuck. Don't wallow in it. You know what I mean? Don't find yourself unable to get out of it, but it means that you're going about the process the right way. You know what I mean? If you're not digging deep in, like Lasana said, to the character, to the story, to the development of your dignity, so to speak, of that storytelling, then you don't really have a story. You're just kind of entertaining. You're just kind of putting stuff out there so we can, get clickbait and get some, a couple of one-liners off of. So find yourself stuck and be okay with being stuck. But as one comedian, Tony Rock, told me, it's okay to get knocked down. Just get your ass back up.
Mm-hmm. Right. I have two answers to that question. One, I answer it from a writer's perspective, right? When it comes to writing and I get stuck, I do two things primarily. I do self-reflection, right? So I go introspection, right? I'll be like, okay, What is it story I'm really trying to tell? What is the characters really trying to tell me? Where are we trying to evolve? How do we get from where we are to where we ultimately want to go?
Word.
Then I go and I start to mine stuff, right? I start to either read or watch or try to aggregate and try to access stuff. And then between that critical reflection, internal reflection, and going externally and trying to get that, it helps normally kind of get me out of the mud and at least gets me to that next step. It might not get me all the way to the finish line, but it gets me out of that moment. And that process can take anywhere from, sometimes it all can happen in a day, and sometimes it can happen within weeks, but it's a consistent process of constantly operating out of that subconscious, right? That's where, a lot of our art comes from, and giving the subconscious some material, but at the same time, not inundating it so that it can process and then give me something. As a producer, when I get stuck, I get my teams together and I say, okay, this is where we are on this project. We're not getting the activity or the traction that we want. What are the moves we need to make sure that we start meeting our due dates and we start closing these gaps? And that's the organizer in me. And then we say, well, hey, this is the reason why we can't get this. This is the reason why we can't get that. And then I say, okay, who can we hire, right? Let's get some estimates. Let's get some quotes. Let's get some people in. But we need to go ahead and start this process and recharging that engine, because filmmaking is a protracted process, right? You know what I'm saying? You always hear stories about filmmakers that be like, I originally had this idea in 1981. You're like, 1981? You like when Scorsese was talking about Killer of the Flower Moon, he been wanting to make that movie for like 30 years, bro.
Yeah.
It was like 30 years. Yeah. And so it's not like he was making Avatar, right? When it was the technology wasn't there. It's just like, hey, these things happen. So and so first had the license, and then somebody else had the access, and then we got this person, right? And so I don't want to be in a situation where, it's gonna be probably a film that I make like in 20 years that I want to make right now. Right. But for the most part, when I'm in post, especially, or in production, we're not gonna be in production for 20 years, and we're not gonna be in post for 30 years, right?
I've been shooting
exactly. So this ain't Hollywood Shuffle. You're not gonna shoot on the credit card over 5-year period. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I do, is I bring the team together, try to find the source of the barrier, and then say, hey, this is how we have to push through. Because endurance, one thing about this industry and this field and being an artist is about endurance. A lot of your successes come from just not giving up on a project, just not giving up on a script, just not giving up on an idea. Now, it may not manifest itself in the way you originally thought it would manifest itself, but that persistence, right? You're going to get yield out of that.
I could talk to you guys for hours, probably maybe a full day, but we cannot do that now. Listen, I'm going out and buying every book that I mentioned at the top, because I want to. I cannot wait to see you guys' films, and of course you were a musician before, Jay, because as a drummer, of course you're painting the picture for the song, and of course you love pictures. So of course that's it. That's all it is. We bring it full circle here. Thank you guys for joining us today. That is Jay Calhoun. That is Lasana Hotep. You guys have made my day. And I hope that you guys, when you're submitting these screenplays, you could do it to lascreenwriting.com. I know that's not on Screenwriting, but we're telling you that now. He knows. lascreenwriting.com. Submit your scripts. You could find these fine gentlemen at Akoben Cinema on all the socials. They have projects coming up. They're being vague about a few because they're going to blow your mind in a while, so just be prepared for that. Thank you guys for joining us today. Before we let you go, though, there's something we do with our guests here that we want to do with you guys as well. Either one of you can answer. It's 5 questions that we have. And so either both of you can give an answer or one of you, and then we can go on. All right, so
I'm going to do like we always do. He answering all the questions.
All right. That's it.
We're Sundance.
He's producing right now. All right, Jay, here we go. You're in the hot seat a little bit. What is a word that you always overuse when you're writing?
Furthermore.
Furthermore?
Furthermore.
All right. Okay. All right. If you could do anything else than what you're doing right now, another career, what would it be?
Ooh, good one. I'd be Cupid.
I
No,
love these outside the box answers. This is-
you totally give me some other shit, right? No, if I was doing anything else, swear to God, I probably want to do, and this is crazy, some kind of counseling, some type of counseling.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like we're teenagers. We talking in school, or what car are you talking about?
You know what? I'm beyond school. I have to do some kind of life coaching, some kind of, really building our young people up, because I got kids and they need some help.
This one's for both of you now. Don't produce your way out of this one, bro.
Okay, all right.
All right, now we talk about superpowers, writers and producers, and you have superpowers. But aside from all that, if you had a superpower, what would it be?
What's your superpower, man?
Oh, I would like to be able to heal by touch.
Ooh.
Okay. All right.
I'm trying to turn a fish into 1,000 plates of food and some wine.
Oh.
And, I'm doing my Jesus thing right now. So
all right, Jesus, we got you. All right.
All right,
Yeshua. I'm doing my Osiris thing right now. You understand?
If you see him in Times Square yelling at a bunch of people, just like he in the Soul Sonic Force, you know where that came from. That's what those dudes be doing. They look like they just like the Soul Sonic Force.
Right?
All right.
All right. As a historian, if you want to answer this, you can.
Okay.
But we're gonna give it to Jay for now. But I want you to chime in if you want to. All right. So who's your North Star? Like, who do you look up to in the industry, or who is it that you always wanted to pattern yourself after, besides yourself? And who would you want to impress the most if you could do that with your art?
Industry or just a person in general?
Whichever one.
Wow. So I'm gonna get a little stupid on it. Malcolm X is my hero.
Okay.
I would love to sit down and share and explain and express everything I do with a mind and a spirit like that. In terms of filmmaking, it would probably be Spike. Spike has been the most influential to like I've met a bunch of others, and I me and Ernest sit down actually and talk a lot about it, but I think he has been the most influential filmmaker in my life, in terms of things that have changed. Shit, I saw School Days and started a frat in high school. You know what I'm saying? So, but yeah, those two people would probably be the ones I really like. I really want to have an audience with them and just rack their brains and let them see what I do.
Nope, you ain't getting away with that easy. What was your name? What was your name in the frat? Come on now.
Oh my God.
Don't do it. Don't leave me like this.
You gotta hear this. You got my attention.
I actually used Giancarlo's character's name, and I was Big Brother All Might.
Okay. I'm gonna answer the question. My North Star, my big ancestor is Harriet Tubman, right? Also known as Araminta. She means so much to me that I named my daughter after her. My daughter's name is Njeri Araminta, because Araminta is Harriet Tubman's birth name. The reason why I like Harriet Tubman or Araminta is because of what I said. She represented victory, right? She was a freedom fighter and she didn't get caught. There's no tragic story, there's no assassination, right? But it wasn't any attempts on her life. She lived into old age, right? And lived multiple lives, right? So my big ancestor is Harriet Tubman. In terms of who I want to impress most in the art would be Haley Jarima. Haley Jarima, he lives in DC now, used to do film instruction at Howard, but now he actually still mentors independent filmmakers from his office of Sankofa right across the street from Howard University. And him and that whole UCLA, USC, LA crew, Charles Burnett, Julie, that whole crew created a foundation that was very fertile ground for the Spike Lees and John Singletons that goes unheralded and needs to bring more attention to that. That's where you get a Reginald and Warrington Hutland from. That's where you get all these folks from, is because of the work that they did and the kinds of films that they made. Haley Jarima.
Okay. All right. The last question, I think both of you got to answer this one. Just give a little life advice for writers right now. Just something small, nothing big. Life advice for writers.
Believe in your talent. That's the only critical piece that you actually have to go on. Successes and failures are going to happen. Triumphs and tribulations are going to come, but believe in your talent because God gave it to you for a reason.
Own your identity as an artist, and you are an artist even if you never make anything for commercial production. You are a writer, even if nothing ever goes commercial.
Word.
You are a director if nothing goes commercial. You are all of those things. Producer, you are a painter, you are a singer, you're a dancer. Because this connection between art and commerce has perverted art. And we think that we are not an artist if we don't have this kind of commercial output. You are that, right? And your contribution is valuable regardless of the commercial output of your art.
All right. If there was a mic, we drop it. Akoben Cinema, follow them on all the socials, is at Akoben Cinema. Writers, get your scripts in to lascreenwriting.com. This is Writers Unscripted. These brothers here, they left me with a lot to think about and a lot to really be encouraged about when it comes to writing, the process, and just filmmaking in general. I hope they've done the same for you. We will have more episodes of Writers Unscripted throughout the year, leading up to the competition and to the ceremony, which is happening at the latter part of the year. But get your screenplays in now, get your scripts in now, and just be a part of the process, because it's gentlemen like this and artists like this, it's creatives like this that make it all worth it and make you know that you're doing incredible things. So thank you guys. Thank you to Jay. Thank you to Lasana. I hope you guys got as much out of this as we did out of hearing from you. Thank you for joining us today on Writers Unscripted.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, sir.